Kyle and the liberal mind. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, the reaction to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and Tucker's interview with him, it got me thinking. Now, liberals used to believe in more, not less speech, and they were defenders of the First Amendment and the rights of defendants. Now, they were suspicious of overzealous prosecutors, and they were wary of elites who pretended to care about the downtrodden, but really didn't. They believed in a colorblind society, all good stuff. But now, they flipped on so many fronts. The new liberals are actually illiberal. They lose all sense of logic where politics is concerned. They're among the most close-minded, intolerant people you'll ever encounter. They disinvite conservative relatives from weddings and bar mitzvahs. Heck, if you voted for Trump, they nixed you from the holiday party list long ago. Now, in our schools, they refuse to teach the great works of Western civilization. All racist, of course. They reject American history because it's filled with white privilege, don't you know? And for them, our nation should forever be defined by two things: slavery and oppression. And they just refuse to think about anything that disrupts this rigid worldview. Like, for instance, why did President Eisenhower have a portrait of Robert E. Lee in the Oval Office? And why in human biology are there only two sexes? And what if Jacob Blake, Michael Brown, and George Floyd hadn't resisted their arrests? And if Rittenhouse didn't deserve the right to self-defense, who does? But they instead stay inside their own cocoon. No tough questions, no hypotheticals, no independent thought, certainly no critical thinking, just ranting.
To make a hero of Rittenhouse is appalling and disgraceful.
White folks, you will not be spared because the victims of Kyle Rittenhouse were white.
The Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, an acquittal being cheered by the far right, even as it strikes fear in the hearts of communities of color.
All of this was unfair and untrue. He's not only not a racist, the only thing that Kyle Rittenhouse seems biased against are riots.
I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement. I support peacefully demonstrating. And I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. And it's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of somebody. Like, if they did this to me, imagine what they could have done to a person of color who doesn't maybe have the resources I do, or is not widely publicized like my case.
Absolutely right. Great points. And by the way, this jury was not corrupt. Applying law and facts, hearing testimony, including Kyle's, they acquitted him on all counts. But the modern left doesn't care. Instead, it's slash and burn at the stake.
Excuses in the world does not change the fact that 3 people got shot.
Yeah.
2 people were murdered.
Yeah.
To me, it's murder. I'm sorry.
Now, compare their hyperbole and hysteria to the words of the 18-year-old whose life they hope to shatter. His words to Joe Biden, who suggested, by the way, he was a white supremacist, here they are.
Mr. President, if I could say one thing to you, I would urge you to go back and watch the trial and understand the facts before you make a statement. It's actual malice, defaming my character for him to say something like that. It's actually quite hysterical how nobody can go back and look at the facts of the case and the lies that they can just get away with spreading.
Although I wouldn't have wanted my own son, my own teenage son, to rush into a riot like Kyle did, armed or not, most moms wouldn't, Rittenhouse really impressed me in this interview with Tucker. He was more poised and more knowledgeable about the Constitution than any member of the squad, and certainly more sincere than, let's say, our current Speaker of the House.
The right thing to do would be to turn myself in. I didn't do anything wrong. It's obvious self-defense. This wasn't a political case. It shouldn't have been a political case. It was made a political case. This had nothing to do with race. And the ways people are twisting this is just sickening.
He's right, of course. This was never about politics, but the left desperately needed it to be. They wanted to make an example out of Kyle. They know that an armed citizenry is the last defense to the soft tyranny that many of them actually prefer to democracy. You see, for them, it can't be that Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent. Instead, they reflexively build up the kiddie rapists and domestic abusers who were rioting that night as mythical figures.
They were selfless heroes. They could have saved dozens of lives. I would never jump in front of a guy with an AR-15 strapped on him. And so they were heroes. And I'm sick and tired of everybody making like they were, like they deserved to die. They were unbelievably brave, courageous individuals.
Now, what happened to thinking for ourselves? Or are we so trapped in our own bubbles that we lose sight of thinking independently? There's a world beyond Twitter and Instagram and constant protests. At some point, we all need to grow up. We already have too many infantilized adults who are afraid of asking questions or, frankly, afraid of recognizing the truths that are right in front of them. Now, contrary to what the regime media would have you believe, conservatives are actually today's rebels, especially on college campuses. Conservatives still question authority when appropriate. Like when Dr. Fauci tries to tell us that, they try to tell us which relatives are safe to see this Thanksgiving. We don't blindly follow the pronouncements of celebrities like Colin Kaepernick. We don't assume the worst in people because of their skin color, like so many on the left did with Kyle Rittenhouse. Yet their default position is to demonize smart and thoughtful people who disagree with them. They hate Aaron Rodgers because he thinks for himself, and a woman like Winsome Sears, who they think isn't really black because she doesn't worship big government. And by the way, this intellectual decay didn't happen overnight. It occurred over decades, with liberals subverting the institutions that traditionally nurtured both critical thinking skills and a love of country, turning them all into kind of cheap propaganda outlets. They produce graduates who've never been tested. Frankly, they've never even been held accountable. So, of course, they wither under real questioning.
In June, you suggested that defenders of the filibuster are motivated, at least in part, by racism. Do you still feel that way?
I mean, it's just what I'd look at history. Use of the filibuster seems to be triggered in points like this, where it is about uplifting black folks in our country and protecting them.
That makes no sense. Certainly not in recent history. Of course, we also have big city mayors who play the victim while their policies victimize the most disadvantaged.
There is violence and there is destruction. What's your message to the people on the streets tonight?
My message is you've been heard. Thank you for calling out the administration for what it's doing. It's unconstitutional. It's an affront to democracy.
Or even worse, a vice president with a law degree who's so in over her head that she makes Joe Biden look capable.
What else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously.
Oh my gosh, she's just an embarrassment to liberals everywhere. I mean, this is the best your movement can produce? Time to rethink your plan, people. America thrives when we reward those of all colors and backgrounds who are hardworking, capable, and independent, instead of rewarding those who spend their waking hours waiting for the world to come to them, to their rescue, and all the while complaining about how unfair the world is, how unfair life is. And we also need dedicated public servants who understand that if they refuse to protect the public's safety, the public will have to protect themselves. It's time to demand better of ourselves and of those we elect to office. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.